Thank you very, very much, and thank you for the cuddle too. Wow, no pressure. Great pleasure to be here tonight. You're an amazing organisation. I've heard about it from Ed over the years and been inspired and stolen some of your ideas over the years. It's a real honour to be here tonight. We share many passions. I am completely and utterly obsessed with the fact that an enormous number of the problems that the world faces are messy, complex. They squelch, they ooze, they sort of slide across all sorts of boundaries. Yeah? And to me, the sadness is that most leaders who are supposed to solve those problems stay within their boundaries. So to my mind, they're slightly doomed to never really crack the really messy problems that cross boundaries because we're stuck within our own. I remember years ago being invited to a meeting the night before. You know, when you have government meetings, it's always the night before, you're the last person to get invited. And they said, could you come to a meeting tomorrow about gun crime? So I said the obvious thing, which is that I knew nothing on the subject of gun crime in London. And they said, never mind, turn up 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. So I thought, okay, I'll turn up. I walked in, and the secret to this story was that I was getting to the stage where I didn't want to waste my time anymore. And I walked in, and the whole room was full of people who were policemen or women. I do not believe that you can solve gun crime with just policemen or women. You need bankers and lawyers and housing experts and education and people from local governments and people. You need everybody to deal with. And just a room for 2 hours full of people from the police. So for once I was brave enough and I sort of said, this isn't me, I'm off. But messy problems require leaders who can cross boundaries, but we haven't got enough of them. I don't know if, the word leadership I always found very difficult. I was brought up French. And, we don't even have a word for it, leadership. What does that mean? And I remember coming to this country, and I'm now 60, I remember coming to this country and realising that leaders were largely men, and that the few women who were leaders had been to some school where everybody played hockey. And given that I was neither a man nor had I ever played hockey, I was clearly never going to be a leader. Yeah? But anyhow, I had this French sense that, leadership was about Monsieur le Patron and agreeing to everything they said, which, of course, none of us are prepared to do, really. And it took me a long time to sort of realise that actually, if you wanted to change the world, you could do it in the 18 hours a day that you're awake, personally, or you could figure out how to be a leader. And that secondly, leadership was something that you could make as your own, and your own approach to it. And I became very committed to the concept of flat leadership, and I spent my whole 20s rejecting. I destroyed so many teams in my 20s. It was so much fun. It was so easy to destroy teams. You're just sort of cynical cow, and everybody got rid of you anyhow. But before they got rid of you, you destroyed whatever they were trying to achieve. Till you suddenly realise that actually, if I want to change the world, I'm going to have to be a leader, and a responsible leader. And I can't say the word that Ed told me I was supposed to say. What is it? Huracha? That's it. Hacha, whatever it is. Can you say it louder, Ed? Hadraha. Better word. I like that. Right. So, however many years ago, to me, we started Common Purpose, which was to try and produce leaders who could cross boundaries between sectors, between all kinds of different things. And years on, it seems to be a much bigger organisation. There's about 80,000 people who've done it, and I believe that every single one of them, I hope, never really trusts homogeneity ever again. They find it unsatisfactory, a sort of slightly stale state. And they always seek out difference and an ability to cross boundaries. So I was looking at your mission statement. Oh, it's delicious. We want to change the world as we find it. Yes. My father always used to say, you had to change the world not from where you want it to be, but where it is. And you're so right. You have to lead from the front. Not sure about that. It took me a long time to realise that you could lead from the front or the back or the middle or the side. It didn't really much matter. I remember a great friend he was Libyan, and he wanted to create a foundation, and it was for the Arab world, and we had a long conversation about it, and he said, you're doing it, and I said, no, you're doing it, and I said, no, you're doing it, you're the Arab, I'm not, look at the face, yeah? So we decided that Tariq would lead it, and then he said, what's your job? And I said, I'm following you, and he said, oh dear. Anyhow, so I think you do lead from the front in that you stand up, but sometimes you stand up at the back or the side or the middle or whatever. Collaboration with other people of the Jewish faith or other people beyond. Remember that, I come from the charitable world. We are so full of people who are passionate, and their passion produces such extraordinary blindness. Because if you're not passionate about what I'm passionate about, you're wrong. Yeah? Passion produces extraordinary blindness, terrifying blindness. And collaboration is so important with everybody. Do you know the definition of the word partnership? The sublimation of loathing in the pursuit of funding. So collaboration, not partnership. Common ground, you talk about common ground, the beautiful, the common ground. The common ground where you are not the benchmark against which everybody else is judged, but we're all actually on the same space. I love it. And then no Voldemort moments, Hogwarts or whatever, Voldemort. Don't mention Voldemort. We don't agree, but let's pretend very British that we do. So you actually name the beast, and then together across everything. But then again, if I made a plea, you would be together across the generations too. I'm very passionate about the need for generations to work together. I know that the generation gap is not a new idea. There's always been a generation gap, but it's a much more toxic thing now. It's a really dangerous thing now. Generations have got to work together. They've got to not indulge in the gap. They have to cross the gap. People of my age should have in our competencies, can you inspire somebody who is half your age? And if you can't, get out of the way. And people who are half my age have to say, can you influence somebody who's double your age? And if you can't, get on with it and figure out how you're going to do it. None of this great respect for white hair. Experience is not always about longevity. We have to get generations to work together, desperately, and to stop self-defining themselves by which generation they belong to. The world faces all kinds of problems that will require generations to work together. We at ComPurpose talk an awful lot about cultural intelligence, the ability to cross cultures, all kinds of cultures, geographies, it's obvious, generations. If I had a penny for all the idiots, the awful speeches, have you ever heard it? We have to harness the next generation. So you go up and you say, do you know what a harness looks like? It's a big, thick piece of leather that you strap around an animal's head, either to force it to do something it doesn't want to do, or to stop it from doing something it does want to do. If there's one thing we cannot afford to do, it's to harness the next generation. Geographies, we have to cross generations, we have to cross sectors, specialisms, backgrounds, beliefs, we have to cross the lot. I got a promotion about 2 years ago, my biggest promotion ever. I became a mother-in-law. And not only a normal mother-in-law, I'm a mother-in-law of an extraordinary woman from Bangalore. And That's been a real surprise in cultural intelligence. Sometimes people say to me, when you don't get on with your daughter-in-law, is it because she's got brown skin and you've got white skin? And I say, no, not much. And they say, is it because she's half your age? And I say, no, not much. Is it because she was born thousands of miles away from you? I say, no, not much. They say, is it because she's a lawyer and you're an entrepreneur? And I say, hell yes. Yeah? She had the wedding sorted in 10-minute slots. I knew it would all be fine. Yeah? That's why we clash. It's got nothing to do with the colour of our skin. We don't clash that much. But cultural intelligence, to me, the ability to cross the boundaries, seems to me the people who have it have this extraordinary understanding of what's them. If you stop doing it, you'll stop being you. Yeah? And then they figured out all the things that they're going to be flexible about and not fuss about. And everybody says, oh, you mean the stuff they haven't made their mind up about? And the answer is no. I've made my mind up. I've decided to be flexible. And that ability to adapt, to not be all core. My grandparents were like that, yeah? They were all core. Everything was fundamental to them. And they had this tiny little bit of flex on the side. Yeah? I love them dearly. They took the view that if everybody in their street agreed with them, there wouldn't be any problems. And I did love them, but you just couldn't let them outside the front door. The ability to learn to both adapt and to know who you are, and to recognise that actually the only purpose of knowing who you are is to really be able to flex enormously. To be able to go with an enormous amount, because you actually know who you are in the end. I deeply believe that the only way... Well, I was once writing a book on cultural intelligence, and I went to see lots of people, and I saw lots and lots of people, and you began to realise that everybody assumed that the way to become more culturally intelligent, to be able to be somebody who cross cultures, was to get you or you or you or you or you to explain your culture to me, and then I would become more and more culturally intelligent. And then I began to realise that there was only one culture that was the killer stinker culture that you could never get your head around, and that was your own culture. And when it helped you understand other people, and when it gave you enormous blind spots. So all of our lives at Common Purpose is about getting people to travel, to move outside their own space, either physically, that might mean to go to the other side of the world, or to the other side of your city, or even possibly the other side of your own road. Reading. It's extraordinary how few people read. And check your Twitter tonight, okay? You go and have a look at who you follow on Twitter. And if you find that most of the people you follow on Twitter are people who agree with you, you've got a problem. There's really no value in following people you agree with. The only thing that's really interesting is to follow people you don't agree with, so that you can be absolutely clear how to blast them out the water. And then the last one, obviously, is to travel in your relationships. Not just to have loving networks, but turbulence networks, people who tell you true. And your first instinct is to tell them to shut up, and then you suddenly think, I just heard something that might be useful. So we have so much in common. I deeply believe that in this period of the world where everybody seems to be wanting to fragment things, common purpose matters a lot. But I would have thought too that in this period where everybody wants to find reasons why they won't talk to each other, Liberal Judaism strikes me as incredibly important. Thank you very much for inviting me this evening.